how about now? Hopefully you can hear me now. Sorry about that. Yay, sound. And let me know if the balance is good or bad. As you know what we should do, seeing as we have only a German speaker in the audience right now, and it's the middle of the day in Germany, and people should be at work, so instead we'll distract them. Wir werden einfach weiter auf Deutsch gehen. So, ja, wir haben dieses Problem mit der HDMI-Ausgabe von der Mega 65 seit Monaten her. Und es ist ganz, ganz nervig gewesen. Ich habe so viele Stunden darin gesteckt, dieses Problem zu lüften. Und ich dachte eigentlich, dass es war irgendwas mit einem Haupt-FPGA und einem HDMI. Wir haben was falsch gemacht. Wir haben diese Clocks und so weiter wieder hergestellten FPGA Entwurf in Mega 65. Aber es hat kaum geholfen. Und dann haben wir gesagt, ja okay, vielleicht haben wir irgendwas falsch mit den HDMI Signalisierung und so weiter. Aber auch das war nicht der Fall. Ganz am Ende, vor ein paar Tagen, habe ich es endlich bemerkt. Hello to whoever else has looked on. If you're not a German speaker, let me know and I'll switch back to English. Otherwise, noch weiter auf Deutsch. Das ist nur ein paar Tage seit ich wirklich Grund für dieses Problem gefunden habe. Und das ist eigentlich die Verbindung zwischen den Haupt-FPGA und es gibt hier unter diesem kleines Ding hier ein Zweit-FPGA. Das ist ein Max 10. Es ist anders als ein Haupt-FPGA. Und dieses kleine Zweit-FPGA, das macht nur ein paar Dinge auf das Ding. Aber was momentan für uns wichtig ist, dass die Reset-Knopf ist durch den Max 10 an den Haupt-FPGA verbunden worden. Und das heißt, wenn es Probleme mit dieser Unterhaltungsprotokoll zwischen die beiden FPGAs, dann könnte der Fall am Ende sein, dass der Haupt-FPGA denkt, dass der Max 10 FPGA hat gesagt, dass wir ein Reset machen sollen. Und wir hatten, es ist ganz schade an mir eigentlich, wir haben vor 6 Monaten, 12 Monaten oder sowas bemerkt, dass ab und zu ein paar Platinen spontan resetten würden. Und ich habe gedacht, ja okay, es ist kein großes Problem, wir haben einfach ein Deglitch an diese Reset-Signal gemacht. Und das hat das Problem angeblich gelöst. Aber hier ist der große Fehler, den ich gemacht habe. Ich habe es nicht auch deglitcht mit dem HDMI, VGA an HDMI Übersetzung Teil von unserem Bitstream. Und das heißt eigentlich, wenn dieses Problem kommt, dann bekommt eine HDMI-Ausgabe nicht ein VGA, nur ein HDMI, ein Reset Befehl. Und es macht es. Und es ist egal. Wenn ich mit das Ding runtertaste, dann finden wir einfach, dass das Bild wird weg. Es ist durch ein Upscaler. So es geht nicht sofort, aber eigentlich bei mir auf dem wirklichen Bildschirm ist es schon schwarz, sobald ich das Ding taste. Und das passiert auch, wenn es ganz kurze Zeit eingetastet wird. Und so, wenn es nur ein paar Mikrosekunden sogar, dann ist das reicht es eigentlich, ein HDMI-Signal, weil es eher empfindlich ist, wegzumachen. Und das ist ganz nervig. So, wir könnten gar nicht Bild aus einigen von diesen Platinen. Und es ist, weil diese Max 10 FPGAs sind angeblich die gleichen Teil. Aber ein Batch zum anderen Batch, es gibt diese Herstellungs ja, kleine Unterschiede und so weiter. Und das Problem, glaube ich, ist in Max 10, es hat kein ja, Takt draußen. Es hat aber ein, ja, innerhalb dem FPGA gibt es ein, ja, einigermaßen okay Oszillator. Und das heißt eigentlich, sie sagen ja, es kann irgendwo zwischen 55 MHz und 116 MHz sein. Ah, okay. Ludon hat mir gesagt, Herstellungstoleranzen. Ja, genau. Danke. Ja, und bitte, wenn ich Fehler mit meinem Deutsch macht, dann ja, bitte sag, dass es besser machen könnten. Es ist eigentlich ja nicht so oft, dass ich auf Deutsch rede. And hello to the third person. Again, if you're not a German speaker, let me know and I'll switch back to English. Sonst weiter auf Deutsch. Ja, okay. So, wir haben diese Probleme mit den Herstellungstoleranzen und so, wir müssen eigentlich ein Bitstream, das in das Max 10 FPGA etwas ändern. Und ich will eigentlich es nur in Max 10. So, ich könnte sogar diese Deglitchung machen für den HDMI-Ausgabe. Und das soll das Problem, ja, quasi lösen. Aber dann müssen wir den Release-Bitstream ändern und dann wieder überprüfen und so weiter. Es wäre ganz leichter, wenn wir einfach den Max 10 ja, Bitstream ändert. Und so habe ich das schon einmal gemacht. So, was wir hier sehen, diesen Platine mit dem ursprünglichen Max 10 Bitstream, gab gar keinen Bild wegen dieses Problems, weil es ist etliche Mal ja, pro Frame gab es diese Fehler. So, ja, ein paar hundert Mal zum Beispiel. Jetzt, man sieht ab und zu, es blinkt aus. Jede, ja, einige Sekunden gibt es vielleicht ja, aus. Und das ist, weil ich es etwas besser gemacht habe. Also lass mich, muss HDMI mit meinem Laptop verbinden, dass wir den Quelltext sichtbar machen könnten. Und wenn ich das mache, mache ich das hier auch. Okay, so. Wir könnten. Okay, da ist mein Schreibtisch. Wir wollen eigentlich den hier. Okay. Blop. So. Hier, so, was in Max 10 FPGA läuft, ist eigentlich ganz wenig. So hier oben, ja, okay, wir haben ein paar LEDs, das sind, Moment, wenn ich das hier, nein. Ja, okay. Hülse, hier unten rechts, die sind diese, ja, rot und grün LEDs. So, die eine ist wie ein, ja, Herztakt und grün sagt eigentlich, ja, ich kann den Xilinx FPGA sehen. Hey, Cakepocalypse, nice to see you. Is German okay for you, or is English better for you? I'm happy to switch to English, but just type me a message if you want English. Sonst weiter auf Deutsch. Okay, so, dann haben wir das Serial Monitor Interface. Wir müssen das auch durch. So ein paar Dinge gehen eigentlich nicht direkt an den Xilinx FPGA. Sie gehen diesen Max 10 FPGA drüber. Und das ist okay, das ist ganz einfach. Es ist eher leicht. Und dann theoretisch haben wir auch ein Debug-Interface, das wir hier benutzen. Bla bla bla. Ah, ja, wir haben diese Dip-Switches. So, das ist auch den hier. Okay. Ja. Und Cake Apocalypse hat gesagt, ja, okay, wir dürfen weiter auf Deutsch. Okay. So. Dann gibt es das J21. Und so, das ist den Header hier, das momentan nichts darauf hat. Aber theoretisch könnten wir das von dem Xilinx FPGA von den Max 10 lesen. Und ja, dann gibt es auch ein Haupt-JTAG-Anschluss. Das ist auch über den Max 10. Und sonst normalerweise fließt es einfach. Okay. Und dann ja ein paar andere Dinge, das ist okay. So, was hier wichtig ist, dass zwischen die beiden FPGAs hätten wir nur 3 Signalen übrig, die wir für generalen Kommunikation benutzen könnten. Und das war ein bisschen nervig. 4 wäre ganz leichter. Und ich glaube, ich muss auch mich an ein paar Dinge von hier erinnern. Aber ja, so wir haben ein ganz leichtes Kommunikationsprotokoll zwischen die beiden, aber es ist wegen dieser nur einigermaßen accurate Clock etwas schwer gemacht. So, es kann zwischen 55 und 160. Hey, Devnull73, yep, great to see you as well. Again, let me know if you prefer that I continue in English. Otherwise, I'll continue in German. Okay. So, es gibt diesen großen Unterschied. Und so wir... yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting who's who. So, English is easier for you then, Simon, right? Because Twitch from here in Australia to send it out has massive latency, which is really annoying. So, hopefully you get... Oh, we've got a fourth on now as well. Yeah, Simon says, yeah, German ain't my strong point. Okay, then we'll continue in English. This is fine. Very happy to do that. When did I learn German? I reckon it's nearly 10 years ago I started to learn German and kind of did it fairly regularly for 2 or 3 years. And of course I had quite a lot of travel to Germany for work. And so, yeah, which was partly, as an academic, you end up traveling abroad, right? But you have a little bit of control sometimes over where you go. And so I made sure that I was going to Germany more often than other places if I could help it. And via Germany, we had a couple of universities that we were working with there. And of course, with the mega folks, it was always great to be able to swing by and spend a bit of time when I was able to. So, yeah, that's right. It is much easier if you can surround yourself by it. And you can do it, living in an English-speaking country, but it's you need to have a bit of, spectrum-like, focus to really be able to succeed. So I read in German quite frequently. Even you try and do the self-talk and thinking to yourself in the other language as well. It's a great way to get the exposure reinforced. Listen to German radio and music when I'm riding to work and everything. There's ways to do it, but you have to really want to do it. Otherwise, it is really, really hard. But that's right. So anyway, so what I was saying, so what we're fixing here is this problem with the glitchy digital video out on some of the Mega 65 boards, and months of hunting through the VHDL, thinking it was in the HDMI output code, or that we had clock jitter or something in the main FPGA, and we don't. What we have instead is the reset button on the board connects to the Max 10 FPGA, which then has a little communications protocol to the main FPGA, and that could get out of sync and it would glitch, and that would cause we have deglitching for the CPU on that reset line, because we had, as I said, we had the clue years ago that there was something a little bit fishy going on with this. But we just deglitched the CPU reset and went, well, that's all fine, and everything else works all right. But the reset line wasn't deglitched into the video output. But I don't want to have to redo the main bit stream, because then we have to retest it all. And so that's a bit of a recap, really, of what I was saying in German as well. So I'm trying to just modify the Max 10 FPGA program to solve that problem. So we're just going through that now. And so the problem is that the internal oscillator in the Max 10 FPGA, it's an internal one, not an external one with high accuracy. And so it's anywhere from 55 to 116 megahertz. So it can be a difference factor of more than 2. And the way that the communications protocol works is that we have 64 clock ticks to transfer data, and then we have one really long clock tick that acts as a sync, because we don't have enough lines to have a separate sync line as well as clock, as well as the 2 data lines. So there's probably better ways, again, than we could do it. But this is what we made, and again, we don't have to change heaps before we actually get the release boards out to everyone. Because the cardboard for the packaging and the other minor bits and pieces that we're waiting on could turn up any week now, and Trends need some time to load the bit streams on these boards. So after all of that, so what we had originally was that the sync counter, I had a lower limit on this, and the sync counter here was lower, it was 4, and working out all of the kind of thing that the tolerance, particularly by the time that you can have the clocks out of phase from one another, is that it was feasible that the Max 10 FPGA reading the thing from the Xilinx chip could read 4 clock cycles in a row the same, and go, oh, that's a sync pulse, and so then it's synchronizing in the middle of the bit sequence that it's trying to shift out, and that's bad. So Ludon is saying it's a really big variation range, 55 to 116 megahertz, very weird. So what it actually is, it's a ring oscillator in the fabric of the FPGA, so it's temperature and voltage sensitive. And this is quite normal, so you can actually do the same thing in the Xilinx one if you don't want an external oscillator, but of course this is not helpful for something like digital video where it has to be accurate. So there is another project where I'm using a different board where the oscillator on the board has failed, and so I've had to work with the internal oscillator with UART communications. I've had to do quite crazy things to basically try and follow and recover the clock from the RS-232 signaling, which is not designed for recovering clock from, to work, and it's a pain. So it's a similar situation here where we have to work out when that long pulse comes so that we know to reset, and that has to be done on this dodgy clock domain, because if we use the clock line itself from the Xilinx FPGA coming through, which we can do, right? And so in actual fact, what you see down here, the Xilinx sync line is that line from the Xilinx FPGA that also does a clock. We can have fabric in the Max 10 FPGA which is clocked off of that, but of course it's by definition blind to the clock, to how long those clock pulses are. So long as they are at least some minimum amount, we can't tell. So what I'm suspecting for the remaining glitching that we're seeing, and so this is having changed that 4 to an 8, and this 127 to a much bigger number to allow for much more tolerance. That's reduced the error rate from hundreds per frame to 1 every few frames, but we want to get it down to essentially 0. So what I've done these calculations sort of estimating what the cycle ratio should be, but we can't be sure as to what they are. So what I was thinking I might try and do is, when we detect a sync pulse, it's a bit late here, it's 10 o'clock, we'll probably go for another half an hour or so as my gut feeling before I'll hit the sack. That we have, I want to record how many of the dodgy clock ticks each half clock of the Xilinx clock takes. Actually, it's just occurred to me that, so I've been talking here, one cycle at 45 megahertz is that many, but in fact we're actually measuring, we're checking when that clock changes. So I think this is actually part of the problem as well, right? That if the Max 10 is down near 55 megahertz, the edges on the Xilinx clock are actually more frequent. They're coming twice as often, right? And so it may miss them because these edges come at 80 megahertz. And so if this is dropped below 80 megahertz in that 55 to 116 megahertz range, it won't pick them all up. And so it might pick up the same half of the clock multiple cycles in a row and think that it's actually part of the sync. So the easy way to deal with that is that we actually need to make a clock which is at half that rate. So if we Xilinx half is equal to last Xilinx half, and then all of that logic should make sense. And what we will do down here, so every time we have a rising edge on here, we will say Xilinx half is equal to not Xilinx half. So, oops. Generate pulse train at 40.5. Oh, sorry, it's at 20.25 megahertz, i.e. edges at 40.5 megahertz from the 40.5 megahertz clock from the Xilinx FPGA. Hey, and welcome along to the other folks who've snuck along in the last few minutes as well. Great to have you along after a big long break. I have just been so tired the last few months. I think went and had a sleep study and everything, because I know I've had a bit of sleep apnea, and yesterday picked up a CPAP machine and used that for the first time last night, and I'm faring much better into the evening than I have for a long time, which is great. So hopefully I'll have enough energy and be able to stream more often, which would be fantastic, because I really do enjoy streaming along with you guys as we're making this crazy machine that is the Mega 65. So if we make that half speed clock, so we need to have signals for those to keep track of them. Whoops. What have I done there? I'm confusing myself here somewhere. Okay, so that's that. So if the Xilinx half has changed, so I think we actually don't need Xilinx sync anymore because we're doing it with that slower signal. Okay, so that hopefully should actually make it much more resilient. Now what I need to do, because we're latching, we've got two unrelated clocks. We've got the 40.5 megahertz clock, which we're deriving a 20.25 megahertz clock from, which is Xilinx half. And then we've got clock out, which is this 2-bob watch in the Max 10, anywhere between 55 and 116 megahertz. And so there's domain crossing with the clock. So what we have to do is we have to tell the synthesis tool that we're doing that. And I'm not sure whether and how I was doing that before. So this will be off screen for a bit because it's in a different window that I can't push up there easily. So what I'm trying to do is see whether that Xilinx sync is listed in any funky file that tells it where the thing is coming from. But I think we'll actually just be rash, and we'll just try and synthesize that. Git commit top halve clock from Xilinx FPGA to make sure less than edges at less than 55 megahertz. So I'll set that building. The good thing is that this little FPGA with this teeny tiny little program is actually really fast to synthesize. So the main FPGA takes, on my poor old laptop now that's a few years old, 40 to 80 minutes, whereas synthesizing the Max 10 takes about 2 minutes, and then I can program it up. So in theory, if this has fixed it, we should get the video image stable. And it's a little bit tricky again because of the temperature variation affecting that ring oscillator. So the cooler the FPGA is, the less glitchy it will be because the clock will be running faster, and so it won't be missing those edges. So if the clock is above 81 megahertz, then it'll be working fine. So that's already synthesized. So now I can program it. Interestingly, actually, to program the Max 10, the way that the board is designed, if the done light is on the main FPGA, and it is literally the light that's fed onto a line in there, it disables the JTAG interface. So that's easy to solve because this one doesn't have a bit stream loaded into the main FPGA. So I can just turn that off and on, plug in the correct USB thing for the programmer here, and you actually will have seen that the light came on. I have a script that will let me program that, and so that's now programmed, and so I can now reload the main bit stream, and in theory, if I have that working, we should have an image, but we do not. What I'm going to try and do is just bring up the serial monitor interface. Where's it gone? So well, I'd show you the screen, but the issue is that we have no output. Oh, hey LGB, great to see you briefly. Saying he's just seeing the note about the live stream, but is at work. But he'll call the current time lunch. Fair enough. But I won't be on for a massive longer, so I won't try and keep everyone away from their work. So that seemed like it should have worked, but clearly it has not. Which is annoying. So let's come back. So the clock's at half the rate. So if at some speed above 40 megahertz, we count how many times it's the same. If we have at least 8 cycles the same, then we are clocking it. Now, so I've got the green LED at the moment actually set to sync toggle, so I'm actually going to put the oscilloscope on it. What I should be able to see is a constant frequency on there. So I need to measure. It'd actually be really great if I could get a way to get this oscilloscope to show in the stream for you folks, but it's unfortunately I don't have a way to do that at the moment. Yeah, why don't you try and get an image of this to show you, because it's so what we should be seeing is that the sync pulses should get detected at a regular rate. So we know it's 80 cycles at 40.25, sorry, 40.5 megahertz. So they're roughly 25 nanosecond cycles times 80 is about 400. So every 400 nanoseconds, if I have that right, we should be seeing a the sync signal toggling, and what I'm seeing is quite irregular. That the okay, which channel? This is channel 2, right? Just again, it'd be great if I could show you the oscilloscope. So we're seeing about anywhere from 250,000 to around 1 million per second of sync pulses coming through. And again, we know that if it's 80 clock cycles at 40 megahertz, that it should be 500 kilohertz, and instead it's jumping all around the shop. So that's clearly not the solution for us. So what I might do, if we come back to our source, so it got worse, I reckon, but when we did that, so let's go back to using the full rate clock, and I'm just going to have a look at the how the oscilloscope looks for that. So again, just build it, which won't take very long. Oh, and it's just, while we're waiting for this, it's been really great to see all the stuff that different people have been working on the Mega 65 over the last while. So even though I haven't had the time and energy to do heaps, other than focus on squishing these last bugs to get the release machines out, it's just been fantastic. I mean, BitShifter with his work on the ROMs, seeing the hint a day as well on the on Discord, I think it's been a really cool thing to see. And different people working on different bits of software and things as well, so it's really good. So that's synthesized already. So we'll clear the bit stream out. Get that just set up a little higher so that she stays in view of the camera for you. So you've at least got something to look at. So let me program. So this should be going back to effectively the old behavior. So if I flash a regular bit stream on here, yeah, we now get an image again, right? So if I go, whoops, if I press the correct button, right, so we can see that we have display again. So I'm going to again probe with the oscilloscope and see how this looks. Yeah, and so what we're seeing now, or what I am seeing now on the scope, is that the interval between the sync pulses is almost always the same. And actually, for whatever reason, it's 250 kilohertz, not 500 kilohertz. So maybe I've made some error in my calculation of the thing. So, what does that tell us, if anything? Other than that, what I thought would fix it made it worse. So that sync pulse is toggling, so that should be toggling every time that it's had the 80 pulses. So the again, I'm just trying to measure on the oscilloscope here to get a sense of how long one of those pulses is. So I can do that to measure. Right, so the pulses are about 1.9 microseconds wide. Retrochrome was making some comment about the German there. Where did that show up? Oh, no, not sure where that's gone. There it is. I've switched to English for folks. Okay. So 1.9 microseconds is 1900 1900 nanoseconds, right? So 1900 nanoseconds divided by 80 cycles is 23.75. So apparently I was clearly not adding things up correctly, right? So 1000 nanoseconds divided by 40.5 megahertz is 24.69. So allowing for some slop in my calculation, 80 times 24.69. Oops. It helps if I use the multiply operator. Is 1975 nanoseconds. So that's plausibly what we're looking at. So 24.69 times 16 cycles. So this is the duration of our sync pulse. It is about 400 nanoseconds. So that is true. It is about 400 nanoseconds. So at 116 megahertz, each cycle is 8.6 nanoseconds. And if we're only at 55 megahertz, they're 18.8 nanoseconds. So we need to discriminate. So, okay, this is weird because I think, oh, and other folks have come along now. So, hey, welcome along. Say howdy in the chat if you like. It's been a while since I've been on. So, yeah, say howdy to folks and love to hear from you all. So, yeah, this is as Simon is saying, it's trying to like nail jelly to the wall. Cross domain clocking stuff is frustrating. So I think I'm right in that the Xilinx sync, so the clock that's coming in at 40.5 megahertz, right? So it has edges at 80 megahertz roughly. So if we say 1000 divided by 81, so every 12 point that's interesting, 12.34567 nanoseconds, there is an edge on the clock. So it's Retrochrome says, Guten Morgen, watching while I get ready for work. Welcome along. Glad we can hopefully give you something a little bit interesting in the retro world while you're getting ready for work. So almost bedtime here for me. So I think halving the clock is the right thing to do, and that it's just by sheer luck, and this is why the very manufacturing tolerance on the Max 10 FPGAs has tripped us up. is that it was sheer luck that this is working reliably before. So yeah, we can fix it in the bitstream. We just have to figure out how on earth we do that. So, ooh, pardon me. Let's have a look and think at our source code again there for a moment. So, if we actually go back to using, the half-speed clock. Because what we're trying to do is to count how many cycles the signal stays the same. And if it's at least 8, then we're saying that we've switched over. So Ludin is saying, so essentially we have the external clock to the Arctic 7, which is the Xilinx one, yep. But the Max 10 doesn't get that external stable clock, but only has its internal thing. Correct! Which is less accurate than a 2-bob watch. And so, yeah, trying to keep the two in sync is a pain. So Ludin is saying, can we clock the Max 10 using the Arctic 7? Yes, this is effectively what I'm doing. So down here, this is actually clocked off of a clock coming out of the Xilinx FPGA, but we don't have enough pins to be able to have that clock and have data go in each direction and have a synchronization mechanism to know when we're at the beginning of each sequence of bits. So what I cleverly tried to do was to have this sync pulse where we have a long clock at the end of each sequence that the Max 10 can detect that long pulse and say, yes, it's a long pulse, we should reset back, which is what this whole sync toggle thing is, right? So in theory, this should all be really good and simple and just work. And that halving the clock speed that we're trying to count from should also just work. So, yes, it's very annoying. Now, I'm just trying to think how... So the halving it might be a problem because it's only 1/2 of the clock, which is actually stretched from the Xilinx end. But no, that should be fine. The stretched clock should still be visible. We should still see that the slowed down clock from the Xilinx side hangs around for longer on one of those clocks. Strangenesses. So I suspect that my cross-domain latching of that half-speed clock is probably problematic here as well. Well, it's got to be a good way to do this. Dealing with signals across clocking domains in FPGAs is just the thing that sucks the most to have to do. Ooh, how can I do it? How can I do it? So it might just go back to, as I say, using the slowed down clock. So if we slow the clock down, just try then increasing how many cycles it has to hang around for, because it's twice as long. Let's try that. So it's synthesizing now. So it is nice how quick the synthesis works, which is good. So we've currently got and running. Yeah, LGB says, crossing clock domains are always the most exciting and horrifying thing at the same time. Absolutely. You have to deal with fundamental uncertainty. So I'm just going to reset the board in preparation. So now it's got there. You'll actually see that the LED will go off briefly while it programs. So that's programmed. So now I can load a bit stream. And we have a picture this time. This is good. So maybe it was just that I hadn't fixed that other thing. Right, so far it's showing a reliable 250k. So I've got the oscilloscope back up, right? So, oops. So I'm probing. Oh, it wasn't a clutch with my hand in the way. The green LED, which is trying to show us the number of sync pulses. And I'm just going to increase that. So that's looking good so far. I'm just going to make sure that the reset button actually does work. Yep. And what I'm hoping is that I will see no glitching at all on the display. So I'm watching the this screen. Now through the upscaler, I don't know how much the glitching actually shows up. But we'll sit there and watch it for a little bit. Okay, so RetroCombs is saying, curious, is this work mode easier using the OpenROM? Well, actually, the reason we're using OpenROM is that this is just a bare board and there's no SD card in there. So the OpenROM is part of the bitstream because from a copyright perspective we can include it, whereas we can't do that with the closed ROM. Well, it's one of those funny things that because our license allows us to distribute it with every Mega 65, so in theory a bitstream with it can only be used on a Mega 65. It certainly would fit the spirit of the thing, but you know, keeping copyright lawyers away is a good idea. So, yeah. But this is encouraging. So far, it's looking rock solid. Now, remember what I said about the temperature affects the FPGA clock speed on the Max 10 because it's just a ring of gates in the FPGA fabric, so the voltage and temperature affects how it performs. So what I might do, I'm just going to power off the main bitstream again. So again, power cycle, so that I can reprogram the Max 10. I'm now going to flash that bitstream because it seems to be a good one, right? That it's doing good. Actually, and I should commit my changes before I forget as well. Git commit dash top.html. We'll go through a bit. So it's just flashing at the moment. So now it's finished flashing. So I'll load up the Mega 65 bitstream and I'll just commit that. Greatly improve cross-domain latching of Xilinx clock and sync. Git push origin. Oops, which branch are we on? Git push origin Xilinx. Okay, so that's been pushed now. So now I can turn on and off the board, right? So what I'm going to do easily, and I know that it'll be there. So I'm going to turn the board off, take that off, because this is the Max 10 FPGA here. So I need to reload a Mega 65 bitstream on it. And so we can see the display there. And the first test, I'm actually just going to hold my finger on it. because this will cause the FPGA die to warm up a little bit. And that will cause its internal clock frequency to drop on that 56 to 116 megahertz clock, which should make it more prone to glitching. What would actually be great is to, I don't have the here in the bench, is to see if I could turn the temperature on the hot air gun that I've got down to like 60 degrees, so that it's totally safe for the board, but that we can heat the FPGA up, because it's 10:30 at night here, and it's now autumn here in Australia, and so the evenings are nice and cool. Like I reckon it's not more than 20 degrees in the room here, maybe even a little bit cooler. And so the FPGA is going to equalize at a fairly cool temperature with its surroundings. But this is actually looking really good. I've been chattering away, I haven't seen a single glitch since we loaded that bitstream. And as you can see as well on the stream, right, that the video output is looking rock solid, that there's no, like, it's not shimmering. What we'd be seeing is that they actually look like bad raster effects. You'd actually be seeing little black bits of raster in there, which we're not. So yeah, hopefully my thingy is warmed up the FPGA enough. But this is really reassuring, and what I'm really happy about is that the changes that we've made all actually make sense, right? We're using the lower clock to make sure that we're below 55 megahertz with the edge rate, and we've increased the number of clock cycles for the threshold, because that clock is now at half the rate, and that seems to have it, I think. So I'll get that bitstream to the other couple of folks. I think, Ludon, you've got one of the R3A boards, and Anton has one. I've got two others here. So we might actually, just before I sign off, update those and make sure that they actually also behave stably. Because I think we can now say that this one, we have it working, right? It's fine. So I will turn that off. Oops, unplugging the bits and pieces. So if you're wondering how you can tell a production board from a dev kit board, the PCBs are actually a different colour. The production ones are the light green. This camera doesn't really do justice, and the lighting in here is a little bit crappy because it's now quite late at night. But you can see it's a bright green colour instead, and other than that there is very little to see difference. If you look really close, I can't remember which one of these chips is the flash, and that's now a different flash chip to on the R3. So it's the flash chip that lets you have 8 slots instead of 4. So Ludon23 saying, can I program the Max 10? Yes. So what you need is one of the Arrow programmers that goes on this connector. So I'll show you as I go through and do the next one. So we'll just pull that out the way and put it back in its static bag. As soon as I find the open side of the static bag, it seems to be the opposite of a Klein bottle. So do you have, you don't have that programmer. So in theory, you can use a run-of-the-mill JTAG adapter, but we'll have a look. So I think Trends have them in stock still. So you should be able to get hold of one pretty quickly and easily. So we've got the one in my case that will do, but we've also got this other one here, which is not the other one that we're just looking at, even though it looks much the same, I assure you. So we'll do that one. So again, we need to plug both of these adapters on. And what you'll need is the Intel Quartus software to actually flash the Max 10 FPGA. Oh, there's the power plug and the HDMI. Right. Okay, so this one is looking stable at the moment anyway, even without being changed. And again, because we know that it's temperature dependent and all the rest of it. Yeah, so it's an FPGA USB programmer Arrow. Yeah, so let me try and get you the Trends Arrow JTAG adapter. So it's cheaper than the other one. You can, in theory, as I say, you can make an adapter that goes between them. So yeah, so TEI 0001 -02. So it is. Let me. This is the one that we're looking at here. Yeah, so Simon's saying might have to break out the hot air gun if it's cool in there. Yeah, which unfortunately I don't have one that is a controllable down to the right temperature. So now, the rest of you out there who don't have an R3A board won't need to do this. If you have a dev kit and if you have problem with glitchy video, then yes, you'll be able to do this remedy, but we'll actually be able to offer a bitstream fix as well on the Xilinx side. But this is purely for production that we... yeah, so Simon is saying, any chance of shot breaking up before reprogramming it? So that's what I was trying to do, but it wasn't playing ball for me. So we'll see if the third board may yet play up like this. So we'll see in a moment. So anyway, so we've got the board. So as we know, so what we have to do to be able to reprogram the Max 10, just with the way that it's all wired up, you have to not have a bit stream with the Mega 65 running. So you can see here that is currently running a bit stream, and if I try to program this with the Quartus tool, let me drag that window. Let me just get a new terminal window. Right, so I'm in there. Right, so we've got if I try and program this, helps if I plug the JTAG adapter into the side of the laptop, the USB end. Unable to read device, so that's because the main FPGA is currently doing something. So the easy hacky workaround for this is to get half. Oops, I'm going to have to unplug the Arrow adapter. Otherwise, you can't do this. It's a bit annoying. You have to unplug the Arrow one in and out. It's a bit annoying. Someone says a hairdryer, or just hold the hot air further away. Yes, I don't have a hairdryer. I go by the rule that if my hair needs brushing, it's too long. Right, so I've started to send the bit stream. So that clears the done bit on the Max 10 FPGA. So then I can do the program. But the program is actually like M65. That's just running it. What we really want to do is we want to flash it. So I'll do flash. Again, it doesn't take super long. Yeah, Simon says, my head is still shaved. Has been for 30 plus years, so I don't have one either. Yeah. So you need to get a head dryer. It's called a towel, but less effective in this particular role. Okay, so that's there now. So then we can actually properly load a Mega 65-bit stream. And that's also being rock solid for me. So that's good. We'll see if the third one actually it was still being glitchy or not. Okay, so we'll turn that one off. And so this bug could also cause spontaneous resets on board if it was being particularly glitchy with the reset line. So one thing that I'm actually going to do once we've got this all sorted out right, because we ended up with 3 boards sent over, and I probably don't need to have 3 release boards. So I'll have a talk to Trends and see if they're willing to. But we may well, I'll get them to send over the cases and keyboards, so I'll pay for those up front. There's no shipping cost from Trends if you order £29.93 more. What else should I put in addition to my shopping cart? Another Mega 65. The answer that I'm required to give to that question, I think. I'm not sure what else you would want from Trends. There's lots of cool stuff. You could get yourself a general FPGA development board if they've got any in stock. Yeah, or someone saying buy 2. Yeah, Luton saying, but that would screw up the shipping time, wouldn't it? If you ordered another Mega 65. Yes, probably it would. Okay, so let me plug that on. Right. Okay, so we're all plugged in. And this one has the SD card, so we're booting up to the normal ROM. And I think I just saw that glitch. As in you saw the display blink away. Now I'm just going to sit and stare at it for a bit and see if I can see it happen again. The trouble is that what you will see, because of the up converter that I've got in the path, may be different. The up converter may drop whole frames. Because in fact this up converter tends to hold the last valid frame for a little while if something screws up. So it may mask the effect. But probably what I'll do as well, like straight after work tomorrow, well actually not tomorrow, maybe the following day, I can do a test again when it's actually warmer in here. So my office is sort of faces towards the northwest, which here in the southern hemisphere is late afternoon sun, and so it tends to warm up fairly readily. No, so I'm not seeing anything. So anyway, so we'll go through the same process, right? So if I start to load a bit stream, and we see the screen goes blank, and now I can plug the arrow thing into the side of my laptop, run the Flash program. The great thing is that flashing this only takes like 2 minutes, so you'll be spending €30 for 3 minutes of programming that you need. Right, so that's programmed. So we can actually, because this Mega 65 has got a bitstream loaded. So we just want to make sure that we have a stable display on there. Cool. So it's nearly 2300 here in Australia. I'm happy that we've achieved a significant thing, because it was kind of the last thing that needed to go into the bitstreams for release all going well. So I'll chuck an email off to Trends in a moment, and I'll send you, Ludon, as well, probably via the Skype channel, the bitstreams for this, so that you can try and update it. Certainly when the thing comes, and we'll get Trends to try putting it onto some of the boards there that they also saw this issue with, and hopefully they'll just work, and that will be great, and that will be, I will be so happy, because this has been sort of hanging over me for a while. So I'll say that for Trends, I believe that I have now solved the problem. Please use the following max 10-bit stream in place of the one previously provided. If you can, please get the folks in production to try this on a few of the boards. Did I just glitch? Again, because I didn't see it glitch on the monitor, but I did see a brief blink on the stream, or rather on the output of the stream box. No. Yeah, and send Oliver a JTAG arrow programmer. Yeah. I think you'll get it just as fast if you go through their normal ordering process. A few of the boards that failed the HDMI display test before, and see if it fixes the problem. Yeah, I think I'm just seeing things out of the corner of my eye, to be honest, that are not really there. Where are we? Thanks, Paul. Right, attach. So I think they're the files they need. So to put a note here about having to halve the main FPGA sync clock when counting edges in the Max 10, because of course the edges come 2 times faster than the clock, and thus the 40.5 megahertz clock had 81 megahertz edges, which is too fast to be sure to collect at 56 megahertz if the Max 10 clock is running slow. Yeah, that's right. Simon says, well, let me start glitching after you send the email. Yes. Find my cursor, hit send, and then we'll wait for the glitching, right? Cool. Sending. Right. Super duper duper. So I reckon that is it for the night for me. Before I turn into a pumpkin, I'll head off to bed in the extreme satisfaction that I think we have this problem under control. Finally. Because it has been a very long time trying to solve this. So anyway, back to what I was saying. So I thought we might try and see if Trends will send the remaining bits, parts and pieces to make up other Mega 65s around those boards, and then they might get distributed directly from here in Australia. We'll see how we go. And yeah, we'll figure that out. Okay, thanks again for coming along, especially at short notice. Yeah, great to have you along. Great to have the chatter there in the comments. So yeah, we'll catch us next time. See you.